Good afternoon and welcome to this special discussion with Ajai Chowdhry. It's such a privilege to be in conversation with you, Ajay. I know you've been a champion for India and the tech sector in India, not just IT sector. From hardware to now quantum, it's been quite a journey in terms of your own personal and professional interest. I'd like to come to that a little later, but to begin with, can we get a brief introduction from you about what is the quantum mission about and how do you see that framework which is being established?
Actually, I think what I'd like to do is to talk about what is happening all over the world. With Trump coming in, the world has completely changed. And it's no longer a multipolar world. You're looking at a unipolar world. And everybody is on his own, every country. So what as a country India should do in this condition, in this state? We should very strongly start looking at tech sovereignty. And I think all countries, major countries, and areas are now looking at strategic autonomy as a very, very important issue. So when we look at strategic autonomy and tech sovereignty, which are the technologies we should deeply focus on? And therefore, what's very clear that post-COVID, semiconductors became extremely important, because we suddenly realized that we had really missed out on creating this ecosystem. I had actually written about it close to 30 years ago, and I had recommended to the government that we must put up at least 2 fabs. Unfortunately, all the governments didn't think that it was necessary. But coming back to where we are today, I think what is quite critical is that we need to be having a deep plan for semiconductors. Similarly, we have to have a deep plan for quantum technology.
But there is also this discussion. While you rightly said that perhaps we should have invested in semiconductors much earlier, there is a talk that is quantum relevant for India? Is it too early? Where do you see the role for quantum in India?
Quantum is essential for any large country. And even small countries are investing anywhere around 400 million to $1 billion. So Singapore, you name it, every small country all over the world is investing. All smaller countries, Finland, etc., everybody's investing very large amounts. Why are they doing that? The reason why they are doing that is that once a quantum computer at the right speed comes around, which is not going to happen tomorrow, it's maybe 5 years, 10 years later. With China, of course, I can't predict. It could happen in 3 years and 5 years. So if a quantum computer appears on the scene, then it'll threaten the security of every country. Cyber security.
So when you say cyber security, but there's also quantum computing, there's quantum for communication, there are 3 or 4 pillars to it. But what are the practical applications for quantum in India that you think India must embrace?
First of all, is that we need to make ourselves quantum secure. So good news is that today in India, we have products developed by startups that are already available for people to implement. Which are the major industries or areas where we should become quantum secure? Financial systems first. Electric grids, number 2. And of course, defense and security.
Can you elaborate? What do you mean by quantum secure?
What I mean by quantum secure is that we should implement technologies that have already been developed in India for making sure that if you implement those technologies, for example, quantum key distribution. Quantum key distribution, if we implement in the country early, then we will be quantum secure. Because if a quantum threat comes around, we will not have a situation of financial systems going down, electric grids going down. You know, during the time Galwan happened, China brought down our electrical grid at the border. And they did it without quantum. So, you know, all these things are likely to happen, and therefore, United States in 2022, the President of the United States said, let us all become quantum secure, and he actually put out a memorandum which all government agencies are following today.
So first step is to prevent attacks on India's critical infrastructure
Yes,
from
absolutely.
quantum,
Yes.
and therefore you need to put up our own walls.
Yes.
The second is the proactive one, which you were alluding to, Ajay, and maybe if you could expand a little bit. How will quantum help industries in, let's say, manufacturing, or you mentioned banking and finance? One of the things we understand, and I think most of us here are still very, you know, we don't have enough understanding of quantum because it works at such a level. The speed of computing is very high. The ability to do calculations is at, you know, nanosecond speed. Why will that be relevant for India? How can banks and financial institutions use it for a better good for consumers?
See, if you sort of look at all the vaporware that companies like Google, etc., put out, they say what can happen, what would take classical computers 10,000 years, it can be done in 5 seconds. I don't believe any of that, because that is not real. What is more important is how we can utilize quantum for the country. And as you rightly said, why should we be in quantum? So, if you look at drug discovery, for example, India is a major producer of pharmaceuticals. Now, as we need to go forward, we need to go away from just generics to having our own molecules. Okay? And therefore, what is critical is we should use technology to speed up the development.
And also the cost advantage, right?
Yeah.
Because the cycle of new drug discovery,
Yes.
will that be hastened by
Oh
quantum?
yeah, dramatically hastened. What takes 15 years to develop a molecule probably will get done in 2 to 3 years. It's not there as yet. The quantum computer development is still taking place. But early users have already started adopting it. For example, JP Morgan Chase has already adopted quantum computing. So a lot of the early users have started to think ahead of time and started working on quantum computers so that they can actually learn how to do it. So when the real, fast quantum computers arrive, then they will be ready. Now let me just explain to everybody here what is quantum and what is classical computer.
Yeah.
See, the classical computer fundamentally works on the concept of 0 and 1, right? 0 or 1, 2 states. In the case of quantum, you can have 0 and 1. Now that's what makes it parallel in terms of performance. And it's completely, aligned to the whole, theory of quantum mechanics. And as a lot of people might not know, Bose in Calcutta was one of the early persons who talked about this technology. And it's, a lot of people would know that boson is something very, very famous. But the issue that I'm trying to bring to the front is the fact that when quantum computers will be much, much faster, but they don't replace classical computers. Classical computers will continue to be used for normal applications. Quantum is not meant for that. Quantum is meant for specialized applications like financial modeling, dramatically faster, right? In addition to that, there are many, many large applications that are going to come up in manufacturing, in design, whole bunch of areas. So quantum is going to be such a force that it will actually change the way we work in the world. The challenge at this moment is that quantum comes with many issues. When you actually make a quantum computer, the problem that comes is that there are a lot of errors that happen because of the way the quantum works. Quantum is associated with errors. So what everyone is now working on is how to reduce errors so that the quantum computer that you produce will be equal to the power that you're talking about. Okay, so that's really where we are. As far as India is concerned, I can give you some views on what's happening.
You talked about the billions which are required to be invested in. I think our finance ministry has committed a few thousand crores for the quantum mission. But what does that money mean? I mean, will it be given to R&D institutions? Will it be given to IT companies? Who is going to drive quantum? There is a lot of blurriness around the application and where it's going to work. So there'll have to be government, private sector collaboration, but how will this work? What are you advising at the quantum mission?
Basically, the quantum mission was approved in 2023, and we started working on it in January 24, when we had our first board meeting. And the way it's all structured is there's 4,000 crores available with DST for the National Quantum Mission. Then, in addition, there's 2,000 crores that 3 other agencies are themselves putting in. Department of Space, Department of Atomic Energy, and Department of Defense. All of them have joined together to work together with us. So they're all on my board, right? In addition to that, when the cabinet note was being prepared, MeitY was supposed to be part of it, but somehow they didn't join. But how can MeitY be out of it? So the current Secretary MeitY, Mr. Krishnan, has very clearly stated to us in our board meeting that he's going to put 1,000 crores on quantum. So you can see the numbers are adding up. 2,000 crores plus 1,000 crores, 3,000 crores plus 4,000 crores. It's actually going to be 7,000 crores that's going to be spent. So now you are asking me, how are we going to spend
Exactly.
that?
Money is not a problem clearly, but how will you use it?
I'll tell you. See, the basic point is that we have actually pretty much in the first month of the board, we actually put out an RFP. And we invited all researchers and institutions to apply to get funds. And they were asked to apply for each of the 4 areas that we are focusing on. Number 1, quantum computing. Number 2, quantum communication. Number 3, quantum sensing. And number 4, quantum materials. And a lot of them applied. I think we had close to 365 applications. It's crazy. I mean, we never expected that.
To do what?
Each of them have put out proposals to say, this is the portion of what we will do. One big difference between any other mission and this mission, we are no longer talking about writing papers. We are talking about making products. So there are targets for making products in every part of the mission. Okay, so when they have come up with their proposals, we shortlisted 4 places where we will put up hubs and another 80 researchers who will work on different parts of the technology. Each of them is signing an MOU with the quantum mission to say this is what they will deliver. And this is something that I am very particular about because I come from a entrepreneurial background, private sector background. I can't work without targets. So the first thing that we did was put this across to everyone, that this is the way we will work. The second thing that we have done is that every one of us has to sign off where they will take the technology. So, we are in research, we talk about TRL 1 to TRL 9. Technology readiness level 1 to technology readiness line. 9 is when it goes to the market. So we are insisting with every researcher that they need to take the development that they're doing to TRL 7 at least. At TRL 7, they have the choice to start their own venture or they can hand it over to a startup to take on from there. So that's the way we are working. And each target is defined for the next 8 years. Now, when I look at those 8-year targets, they were decided 5 years ago when the cabinet note was prepared. Today, it has no relevance. We will need to bring up these targets. For example, we are talking about taking 8 years to make a quantum computer of 1,000 qubits. Irrelevant anymore. So this is something that we are seriously discussing within the mission to say how can we improve on these targets that were originally set. And therefore, we are looking at it in a much different way than originally planned, because obviously the world is changing. There is so much innovation happening in quantum today that you will go crazy trying to follow up.
And this is very interesting because, you know, while you innovate, the world is innovating faster with the new chip that Microsoft has introduced, Majorana, which is the world's first topo conductor. So while you set various kinds of deadlines, by the time you start getting to the ground to make some changes, you see the entire the context has changed. I mean, isn't that a challenge as well for a country like India?
It is a challenge in two ways. One, to see that this is happening. The second is to see the reality behind the vaporware. So, you know, a lot of stuff happens in the industry, and I've been in this industry 50 years to understand this. Vaporware is part of our industry. We'll talk about this is what we have done. It'll feel as if it's already there. It's not there. These chips are not going to make a great difference today, but they will make a difference to bring forward the computing power and computing at the right qubit level much faster than originally thought. Originally, when we went into the quantum mission, we said it'll take 15 to 20 years for a good quantum computer to arrive. No more true.
So it's very interesting from, you know, HCL desktop computers to quantum computers. It's been a terrific journey for you, Ajay. But today, when you talk about tech sovereignty, focusing on hardware for India was perhaps one of the earlier dimensions. Today, semiconductor plays that role of being the core for tech sovereignty. Where do you see India in that today? Are we taking the right steps? Do you think that we can actually make a difference and build our own chips in the near future?
Well, I have been advisor to the the semiconductor mission for last 3 years. When we started out, the government was very clear that they wanted all kinds of fabs to happen in India, which had not happened for the last 40 years. We'd missed the bus. So we must have all kinds of fabs. That was the first objective. So for that, we created the most generous scheme among everybody in the world. We give away close to 75% of capex to anybody who wants to sell, come and set up in India. 50% by the central government, 25% by state governments. A country like China, a country like the US gives away 30%. So the reason we had to do it, because we were competing with everybody. Because everybody in the world had realized the problem that happened during COVID. And if you don't have your own semiconductors, you're really asking for trouble. So that's how we went into it. $10 billion has now been committed. And 5 fabs are coming up. Out of them, 1 is a silicon fab, 4 are OSATs, which is fundamentally packaging. This is not good enough for India. So the government thinking is that it's a 20-year plan that we have to have. Inside that 20-year plan, the next piece will get decided in the next few months, where another 10 to 15 billion dollars will be put into this scheme, where we will come up with compound semiconductors, we will come up with the display units, and in addition to that, we will upgrade the semiconductor complex. Now, this is still not good enough, because this is just an enabler in some manner. Because the requirement in India for semiconductors is growing every year. And we decided in the beginning that we will go from 28 nanometers upwards because we didn't need the latest technology. And we still don't. And that's the right decision to take. Because the 28 nanometer area at 40 nanometer area is where Tata's plant will start to produce. And we expect Tata's to come out with a chip in the next 2 years. But Micron will have its first chip, memory chip, out this year. So this is where we are. But what is missing is the most important part that I would like to bring out. I am very concerned at this moment that we have somewhere not looked at our strength area. Our strength area is design, not manufacturing, right? We are still learning the whole game of semiconductor manufacturing. We don't have any people. We have to train them from ground up. So a lot of work has been done on creating a paper to create 50,000 people for manufacturing. That is going on parallelly. All universities all over the country have been given targets to actually achieve that. But that doesn't take care of my big concern. My big concern is that who will be the customer of the fabs? So if the fab comes up, let's say 2 years later, the Tata fab will come up. All these fabs will be totally dependent on export business. They have no business in India. The reason for it, we don't make and design any chips in India, for India. We have world's 30% of the world's design people in India.
So how can this concern be addressed? What steps need to be taken to address this?
So I actually picked it up with the Honorable Minister last year. And I went to him and said, we should not put cart before the horse. We should work on creating Indian chips and Indian system products. See, we destroyed the electronics industry by signing up WTO in 1999, when 2015 all duty was made zero. So now we need to bring back that. We need to make products in India and we need to make chips in India. So we set up this task force based on my discussions with the Honorable Minister. This task force has submitted its report 4 months ago. We are still waiting for action to be taken on it. What we have suggested there is to put aside 40,000 crores behind making products and chips in India. And we have identified which chips and which products. And we should now give out funds to startups and corporates and software companies and hardware companies to make these products. And the other thing that we have recommended is to create the market for these. If we don't create the market for these, chips will be made and nobody will use them. So what we have suggested is that all government purchases must be for Indian chips in products that they buy. Let's take CCTV today. CCTV till 4 months ago, 6 months ago, you could import from anywhere in the world. Chinese CCTVs have got an idea of all our roads and streets and everything. It's all, that data has all gone back to China. The challenge with chips that come from China is that there are backdoors. And this is something that we need to be aware of. So what we have suggested is that we should look at the low-hanging fruit, pick up the first 10 chips which have large demand in India, make sure that the government does not allow Chinese chips in products that are being imported into the country.
Is your advice is it finding resonance in the government? Are they accepting the thought and the philosophy behind it?
I hope so. I'm not too sure as yet, because I need to see this happen. And I'm not part of options of the semiconductor mission, so I'm not aware what's happening. But major thing that we have asked them to do is that till yesterday, they were giving 30 crores per chip for design through the design linked incentive scheme. 30 crores, you can't make any chip which is proper. You need at least 30 crores, 100 crores, 200 crores for a chip.
We need some agility on part of the government and the policy makers as well to be with it. We have about 5-6 minutes left. Let me quickly take questions, because I'm sure there are many thoughts amongst all of you. If you can raise your hands, can we have the mics in the audience, please? Quickly introduce yourself. If you can keep the question brief, I'll be able to take more. The gentleman over there, please. And then, yeah, okay.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, my question is that ASMLs and the Qualcomms of the world, they are ahead 50 years from us. So they have already had the research centers, big facilities in their respective countries. Now, if we are starting now, and 10 years down the line, the technology changes very rapidly, how are we going to catch up with that?
Okay, good point. Sir, we'll come to you. We'll collect the questions and come to you, Ajay.
Hello.
Forget the question, so please make a note.
Okay, then why don't you answer this?
So, you know, a basic thing is that don't worry about the latest technology. Our requirement is very well known to us. There are at least 20, 30 chips that are required in the 40 nanometer and 28 nanometer area. And those will be required for the next 5 years also. So don't worry about having the most advanced chip available in India. It's not required. Because to set up a TSMC type of facility in India is too expensive. The returns are not there. You got to understand that in making semiconductors, the ROI takes 10 years. So if you put up a chip plant like TSMC, it will take 5 years to come up. Investment will be huge and the returns will not be there because TSMC would have gone further. So we took a very clear view that we must look at mature chip technology, which we can immediately implement and utilize for the country.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Sébastien Foucault. I'm an expert in AI. I'm living here in Noida. My question is related to AI, obviously. This is a huge growth, and the need is growing exponentially in the past few years. Most of the development in AI rely on NVIDIA or similar type of advanced chips. So, what would be needed in India to be able to develop this type of new technology? Indeed, you just mentioned that's maybe not be where the need is, but with the huge amount of talents around AI that we have here in this country, I would think that the growth is also there. So the ability to develop large GPU and GPU cards for the purpose of the development of AI.
Well, actually, I have a slightly different view from a lot of people. You see, there's too much buzz around AI, too much. It should be 50, it's 200. Okay? Now, what I believe is that AI we should use to design chips.
Yeah.
Because then we can design them faster. Right? That's the way we should go. The second point I want to make is that only GPU is not the end of the world. GPUs will come, GPUs will go. 10 years ago, Intel was king. 1 year ago, NVIDIA was king. Who knows who will be king 2 years later? AMD and Intel are not just sitting idle. So, major changes are taking place in terms of the semiconductor technology. That's why our focus should be on design. So, one of the thoughts that the government definitely has is to create its own GPU and also create our own LLM. These two declarations have been made by the Honorable Minister already. And let me tell you, feverish work is going on, not in the government, but among startups. I can guarantee you, in the 3 month, 6 month period, 9 month period, you will see some major announcements from startups in India. Because startups are moving much faster than any other organization in the country. Even in quantum, you'll be surprised we have 109 startups already.
Ajay, one final question, we have to end soon. It also seems to me that we could be looking at a problem area where semiconductor plan is moving with one bunch of people, the quantum mission is working with another bunch of people, but the twain are not meeting. Do you see that there needs to be a more comprehensive view of India's tech sovereignty and tech future rather than having independent missions and teams which perhaps don't talk to each other? You gave the example of MeitY not being part of this. Is that something which is worrying you as well?
Absolutely. That's why first thing that I said is tech sovereignty. We should have actually in this country a single ministry for technology. And this ministry should be given a very clear task that in the next 15 years, we must have 5 Indian companies among the top 5 in the world in specific technologies that we select. Technologies like nuclear, technologies like quantum, AI, two-wheeler EVs, drones. Let me tell you, all these technologies need deep research. And the challenge in this country is we don't do research in the private sector.
And is it also siloed? This is again the problem.
Silos and very poor investment in R&D by private sector. One of the good things that's happened, last year the government announced in the budget 1 lakh crore for R&D which will be put into private sector and startups. And the good news is that this year's budget, 20,000 crores has been put into DST for making this happen. But the silos still exist. And that's a concern I also have.
Ajay, thank you so much for joining us. I think we'll end on the good news that funds and resources are not a challenge for India. Strategic vision is also not a challenge because there is a belief that technology is going to be driving India's economic future and tech sovereignty. But perhaps the application and the roadmap and the framework needs far more thought and far more change.
Can I have one word?
Absolutely.
My one word which I want to mention is that we have done enough with services. We need to go away from services to products. India should be a product nation. Why? Because there's serious issues, serious headwinds to services today. Can you imagine what is going to happen to the software services industry with AI and automation?
Thank you. And we hope your leadership on Product Nation will be bearing fruit. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. Could I please request the memento, please? Thank you very much, Dr. Chowdhry. Fabulous discussion right from tech sovereignty to strategic autonomy to becoming a product nation and also creating a market for those products. Thank you very much.